Okay, it is 2 o'clock. Welcome everyone to the first Manzanita workshop in the new year of 2024. It is exactly 2 o'clock, and present are Jerry Spegman, Brad Hart, and myself. Mayor Stock has been excused from this meeting. As you know, during a workshop, we don't take any input from the public. It's the time for the city council to talk about upcoming projects, share ideas, thoughts, but we make no decisions. But before we get started today, I think Layla has some information she'd like to share with us.
Yeah, I would. Thank you so much, Linda. So today, I've kind of been culling through some of our records. We discovered a discrepancy in the term for a member of our planning commission. So actually, Karen Yurka's position expired in December of 2023, the best that we can tell. Unfortunately, our records from prior to my arrival here in terms of when appointments were made were a little unclear. So unclear. And so I reached out to Karen, and we're just going with the most conservative estimate of when her term ended, which we are now estimating to be December of 2023. So what staff is doing in response to that is we're going to be putting out an application form to follow the procedures set forth in the council's rules of procedure. Karen does intend to apply for that position, but the application will go out tomorrow, will be up for 3 weeks, and then we anticipate making a formal appointment in March, but there may need to be a step in February that's taken to allow her to serve in an interim basis until the formal appointment is made. That appointment process will be open to anyone. So even though Karen's applying, others are certainly invited to apply as well. But this is just kind of one of the vestiges of just getting us into the 21st century. So while it's not ideal, we are taking the appropriate steps to correct it. So just wanted to state that out there and let folks know that application will be live tomorrow, and we'll go from there. So thank you for the opportunity to share that.
Thanks, Layla. So again, some new people have arrived. I am the black spot in the center of the screen. Unfortunately, my camera is out. So I am here, and I understand you can hear me. We'll start today. This workshop is to focus on the city manager's performance review process. Last year, there was a great deal of interest in the process, and we committed to share it with the public prior to our city manager performance review. To begin, I want to indicate that our performance review is based on the city manager's position description. The position description and the other forms are available in the December 6th packet. We provided those in the December 6th packet. So if you want to go back and review those or review those in the stream, that's available to you. First today, we will go through the forms that we use, and then we'll talk about the process. And council, if you have questions, anything along the way, please speak up. I am going to ask for some input at the end of the meeting, so either way would work effectively. So Nancy, can you put up the staff questionnaire? Can you share that? All right, this is the evaluation form that we will use this year to get staff input. The information is confidential and is not shared with anyone other than the council itself. The questions are: does the city manager communicate responsibilities and tasks to you clearly? Does the city manager respond adequately and timely to your concerns and suggestions? Describe your working relationship with the city manager. Do you feel listened to? Do you feel supported? Can you make independent decisions if needed? And please explain. Are there any issues the council should be aware of regarding personnel management, either positive or challenging? And please be specific. So that's the staff. Now, could you put up the city manager's self-evaluation form? So this is a form that Layla, our city manager, would fill out. The first part of it is focused on the previous year. The second part is focused on the future. So yeah, thank you. So what were your goals for the previous year? What were your successes? What obstacles or setbacks did you encounter during the year? And what is still needed and why? What are your job-related accomplishments have you had that were in addition to the present goals? Now for the future, so is what do you see as your major goals for the current year, and describe any action plan for completion of the stated goals. We want each of those answers to address city operations, personnel management and administration, specific or special projects, fiscal management and planning, community relationships, relations and outreach, and mayor and city council relationships. Are there any other issues or comments you wish to share? And then scroll down just a little bit more. The last question is, do you have suggestions for city council? And the purpose of that particular question is this is really a conversation. And the whole purpose is to make the working relationship between the council and the city manager the most effective it could be. And generally, we get some excellent information out of the self-evaluation from the city manager. Okay, next. The next is the performance evaluation form filled out by each city councilor. Now, this is on a PDF form. So the blue square is we would type in the answers. What you don't see on that is it allows a lot more input than is just visible on those forms. So it's not just limited to the size of the green space or the blue space that you see. What impressed you the most favorably about the city manager's performance this last year? How well did the city manager do in implementing council adopted goals and priorities? In what area has the city manager shown exceptional performance? What's your major areas of concern regarding the city manager's performance this last year? And what should be the city manager's top 3 goals or targets for this next year? On the second page, it's a rating system, and I'm not going to go into the detail of each rating system. That's certainly available. But our city manager is rated from 1 to 5 on A, elected body relationships, B, organizational, C, community relations, D, fiscal performance, E, intergovernment agency association relationships, F, communication, G, personal. And then there's a total score at the end. Now the process, so what we do with those forms is I send the forms out to city council and staff and ask them to return them to me. I take both the staff and city council forms and summarize them for the performance review. All individual responses are available to all city councilors at any time. So there's a summary, but there's also access to the actual responses. Initially, so the first part of the performance review is I share the summary of the report from staff with city council. Then 2 staff members join us and give us feedback and respond to questions from the council. The 2 staff members vary from year to year. Staff leaves and the city manager joins us. At that point, I share the summary of the council responses, giving time for additional input from council as needed. And also if the city manager has any questions or feedback, there's plenty of opportunity at that point. After that, the city manager shares her self-evaluation with time for questions and answers. Once that's completed, the city manager leaves and the council discusses any follow-up action or support that might be useful or necessary. This last year, we have had, to put it lightly, a very productive but chaotic year. So I'm interested in any comments from council about the forms, any changes you'd like to see in the forms, or anything that you hope to learn from the process would be really helpful. So I'm going to open it up to Brad and Jerry. Any input or thoughts?
I do have a couple of thoughts. I'll just go sequentially. The form where we gather input from staff people, I know there's a note in there that says it can be anonymous if you want it to be. I'm just wondering in general, we've got about 15 or 16 staff folks, I guess. If they're all completing those forms, we don't want to draw any attention to anyone who elects it to be anonymous. How does that work exactly? I mean, in a normal course of business, would the city manager have access to all those forms?
No, the city manager does not have access to those forms.
Okay, good.
Council has access to, the city manager does not.
Gotcha. Okay. And I was glad to hear you say that we swap out the staff people every year. That I recall the two that presented last year were great, and they're great people, and I enjoyed talking with them. But I think it's good that we have different people every year.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. I guess I have a general concern for the process just because we have two new counselors who have not had the opportunity to work with the city manager for the full year. And, the city manager is entitled to an evaluation. The community is entitled to hear about our evaluation to some extent. And we're gonna do an evaluation, but I do think we need to figure out amongst ourselves, I guess, in executive session, how to take account of the fact that Brad and Catherine just haven't had the same opportunity that we've had. And then, of course, by the time we do this, we'll have hopefully a fifth counselor
who will have no experience.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't have an answer for that. I just think it's a fair. I'm kind of glad I'm speaking ahead of Brad because I think, Brad, I'm sort of offering you an opportunity to help us figure that one out and tell us what you need and what we can do and how we can accommodate the situation, if at all, because it's a tough call. I know I'm on another board, and when we have a annual evaluation of the CEO, new members generally don't participate just because it would be hard, obviously, to do so. And we don't really have that option here, I don't think, but we need to at least be aware of it going into the conversation of how we can deal with the situation. And then I guess the only other thing, Linda, is, when I look at the forms and certainly the city manager evaluation, job description, I see a rating system or an evaluation system, I should say, that is based on sort of how did the manager do given our expectations of what the manager should have had to face in a given year. And as you mentioned, we just came through a chaotic year. And so obviously, from time to time, regardless of what a job description says, or regardless of what an evaluation form says, new and unforeseen circumstances emerge and really need to be taken into account. Pretty good example, I would think, would be a few years back, before we knew we were going to have COVID. I guess every city manager in the country had a job description laid out that didn't account for what do you do if there's a global pandemic. And granted, the global pandemic was not primarily the responsibility of a city manager to deal with, but it certainly impacted the city manager's job. And so I just want to make sure we're sensitive to the fact that we have seen some unforeseen circumstances in the past and in the recent past, and we need to be able to take into account how the manager responds both positively and negatively to those circumstances, even if the evaluation forms or the job description don't quite address prospectively those circumstances. And we may have one such matter right under our nose. I look carefully at the evaluation form and the job description where it talks about responding to requests for information. And I assume that covers the issue of public records requests. And I just want to note that we're sort of having a bit of an explosion in public records requests. Apparently, we had about 71, I think, last year. We've already got 5. It's not even halfway through January. We've already got 5 this year. I believe the history in the recent past, was that we would get about 20 a year. So something's going on, and we're getting more requests, and that's okay. There's laws that govern that whole situation, and I'm not suggesting that we shouldn't get public records requests. I just think that if we're suddenly getting more than is normal or is to be expected, or certainly has been the norm around here, we ought to take a look at that and figure out what's going on, and either adjust the job description or the evaluation forms, or at least in our evaluation, take into account that sometimes stuff happens on the job that was not anticipated,
Right.
and how somebody responds to that, whether good or bad, has to become part of our evaluation. So, that's just one example. There are other things we could point to that are a little unusual about the year that's being evaluated here. But I just want to make sure that yes, we use the forms and we use the description, but we're not blind to sort of extra
Oh, absolutely.
activity. Yeah.
Absolutely. Good, very good comments, Jerry. Thank you. Brad, do you have some input?
I do. I appreciate your comments, Jerry, about being new to council. Along those lines, I see it's year 22 to 23, the evaluation period. So is that July 22 to June of 23, or are we evaluating calendar year 23?
Brad, thank you for catching that. That was an oversight on my part. We are evaluating the 24 end of 23, the year 23. And in the future, we're looking at 24.
So it is by calendar year.
Yeah, it is by calendar year.
In regards to Jerry's concerns about us being new, I certainly agree with those comments. I feel like quite a few of the questions I would have the ability to answer and put in some valid input. Just to give one example that I think may be a little difficult for Catherine and I would be question 2, how well did the manager do implementing adopted goals and priorities? I would see it being more valid coming from someone that's been there for the majority of that year to answer that question. We can certainly discuss further in another work session or an executive session, but I think in those cases, like question 2, I could put some reflection based on what I've seen in my limited time, but would put a caveat that I don't really feel that's applicable specific to my input. I do feel like the rating scale questions, I would be pretty comfortable with those ratings on the 1 to 5 scale. And one thing I would like to point out in my previous corporate experience on that rating scale of 1 to 5, and I just want to validate this is the same for the city, that a rating of 3, meaning meets expectations, is by no means a bad or mediocre rating.
Correct.
Based on the job description that I've seen and the workload, I think if you've met expectations with those types of responsibilities, you've certainly proven yourself and performed your job very well.
Absolutely. No, I agree with that. And I think your point about reflection on question 2 is really appropriate. And I think we can segment it so that it differentiates those people that have been, well, it would be Jerry and I, that have been there the entire time, separated the newer input. I think there's a way to handle that.
Another comment is Jerry mentioned approximately 15 staff members and a couple of those that will come in to discuss the evaluation when we are ready to do that. Are the staff evaluations sent to the city manager's direct reports or all staff?
They're direct reports. It's just.
Okay,
two
that
direct
makes sense.
reports.
Yeah.
All right, that changes my number. I'm not.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's good to be reminded of.
And the two that will be in front of us will be direct reports.
That's it for me.
Hey, Linda, last year I recall we got an extraordinary number of, I believe they were unsolicited public comments about the evaluation. And I don't know if you would know better than I if that was typical or if that was different from previous years, but can we, without, soliciting those comments, can we at least make it clear to people how they would, get something into the record?
Absolutely. I meant to say that, or I meant to speak to that. Carol Kennedy in our last council meeting had suggested something like that and asked for that. So yes, if the public has any input that they'd like to share relative to the performance review or just in general, send it to City Hall at ci.manzanita.or.us, and we will certainly review those for sure. Thank you, Jerry. I think that would be really helpful. So this is going to be a pretty short workshop. So is there any other comment or thought or wisdom that or project we'd like to discuss?
I do have one more question about the evaluation. I would like Layla's input. I think she's been through this process once, and it looks like this is very similar to what was done before. Is there anything you would like to comment on or changes you'd like to see? And is this all seem comfortable and reasonable to you as the one being evaluated?
Nice. Wait a minute, find my camera, so maybe not my technical skills, but I appreciate you asking that. I feel like the process that council put together, particularly adding my staff to the evaluation process for last year was really helpful, because I think that's really important. And the feedback I get through that process, as Linda said, it's all confidential, but you share sort of anonymously the feedback I get. That helps me improve my skills as a manager. So that addition last year, I think, was really solid. I think the rating scale, I appreciated what you had to say about meeting expectations in this job as not being, it's not like it's a C on a scale of A to F.
Absolutely.
That I do appreciate. And I feel like the scale is a little, I think the last versions, I did get, again, sort of Linda, who has led this process, makes it anonymous, but provides kind of additional comments. So like comments to support the ratings are helpful, because then I can understand where am I doing really well and where are there places that I can do better or expand my skill set to be more effective in the role. So, I feel like it's a very robust review, and it's a very in-depth review, and I've done it 2 years in a row now, and so I find it a very valuable process. So I don't have anything substantive to add. I think that was really addressed last year when Linda elected to add the staff to that, because that's, I think, all of you have served as managers or in leadership positions, and I think you can appreciate why that's super important part of the process. So thank you for asking, but I feel like it's a thorough and robust assessment. So I wouldn't add anything more to it necessarily.
Good. And just a comment for myself, I won't speak for my colleagues, but I think they would feel the same. I've had employees in the past that really got nervous and were really on pins and needles about a performance review. And my response to that always was, there was an issue or something that I thought needed to change, you would certainly know well in advance and have the opportunity to do different things prior to an evaluation happening. So you won't be getting any
Surprise.
surprises from me. And I think that would be the same for the rest of the council as well.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, that was an excellent comment, Brad. Thank you. Well, unless there's anything else, I think we can close the workshop.
Linda, I just want to reiterate that we do have an active vacancy on council. We're hoping to get applications so that we can make a good decision at the February meeting. And one thing that hopefully goes without saying, but maybe folks are not clear on this, if anybody is interested in serving on council and has questions that would be best answered by folks who are on council, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. There's nothing inappropriate, and it certainly has happened in the past. I've had applicants for vacancies talk to me about the process and the job, and you know, so if you're thinking about it and you think that it would be helpful to talk to any of the counselors in general terms, I would certainly encourage that.
Absolutely. That would be great.
Agree.
Okay, thank you. With that, I think we'll close the workshop and that's it. Okay.
All right.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Good job.